Hey everyone, Joel Heitkamp here, one of the hosts of The Hot Dish. I get a chance to visit with Mackenzie Landa. Here's somebody that understands the outdoors. Here's somebody that gets it, as I do. If you're listening, you know how much I love the outdoors and you know what I do about it. Mackenzie served as a senior advisor to the Deputy Secretary of the Interior under the Biden administration. So she knows what it's like to get a tough phone call or two and yet still be able to advocate for the outdoors. When you serve as a senior advisor to a deputy secretary, that puts you in a position where each and every day you're working and you're working hard and you're not getting paid much. But you're doing it because you love it and you're passionate about it. The outdoors can do that for folks. It really can. The outdoors can put you in a position where it doesn't matter if you're in a contentious situation. What matters is that in the end, you're making sure things are just as good, if not better, than when you got the job in the first place. And so the power oftentimes lies with those individuals who want the development, who want to get out there and get after it. And they want condos, they want homes, they want that second home where they can look up and look at all the beauty that the outdoors is for many of us. It isn't about what's good for everyone else. It's about what's good for them. Now that's Joel Heitkamp's bias, okay? That's my bias, but they got to be told no. And oftentimes you have an administration who, for lack of a better way, sucks up to them and makes sure that they've got the ability to just go ahead and get whatever they want. And it seems to me that isn't what we as a general public want or need. And so I'm going to get a chance to now include this conversation with Mackenzie. Thank you for joining us here on the summit.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
You bet. I got preachy there. So just so you know, you don't have to back up anything I said. That was my own personal bias. Explain what it was like to work with the Department of the Interior under the Biden administration.
It was great. At the Interior Department, we're lucky, I think, to have a very broad portfolio. Most of the land management agencies fall within our purview. And so my job was to really coordinate a lot of the policies, programs, investments across the Interior Department agencies. So, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the National Park Service, Bureau of Land Management, Bureau of Indian Affairs, and really think about how we can coordinate those agencies to conserve, restore, protect public lands. And that, ranged from sustainability on parks and public lands, renewable energy development, bison and grassland ecosystem restoration, wildlife corridors, habitat connectivity, a whole broad spectrum of issues, which made it really fun.
So did you, and I'm going out on a limb here, I don't mean to put you in a spot or put myself in a spot, but did you get a chance to hear Senator Heinrich?
I didn't, but I do know I think he mentioned bison and grassland restoration and that. But I didn't have a chance to listen myself.
Well, I went about using some of the time that I got to be with the senator to correct him, and now I'll correct you on how you say the word bison.
Okay.
But I'm just joking. Just because you're saying it the right way doesn't mean we're wrong. I just want you to be right to know about that. But to do your job, you had people get after you. You did. You had people mad. They wanted something else. They wanted this. They wanted that.
It's a service we provide.
Yeah. To know at the end of the day that you advocated on behalf of those lands and future generations. What did that feel like?
It's hard because the first deputy secretary that I worked for, Tommy Beaudreau, he would say, we can do what makes us feel good now, or we can do, what we think will be durable. And that might not always mean getting everything we want, right? It means working with our partners and making compromises. And so, it's hard because there is a balance between just going full in, right? Doing what we think is actually the right thing to do all the time. And also thinking, all right, what can we do that will last? Where can we make progress that has enough buy-in from enough people that it won't automatically get reversed the next time somebody who doesn't share our worldview is in power. And so it felt good, right? It felt good to be advocating for public lands and for wildlife. And at the same time, it was sometimes frustrating because you can't always do exactly what it is that you think is the best thing to do, because it might not be the best thing in the long run.
There's this assumption that people that have private lands up against public lands, that they can't work together or benefit each other. What did you find out?
Some of our best and most important partners are private landowners. They also want to be good stewards of the land. They also care about the land. And I maybe just, if time allows, I'll give just a really quick example. So I led our work, like I said, on wildlife corridors. And so when we came in, Secretarial Order 3362 already existed from the first Trump administration. And that was a secretarial order aimed at restoring and conserving wildlife corridors for 3 big game species in 11 Western states: pronghorn, elk, and mule deer. And so we came in and people liked it, right? Like, if conservationists and fish and game, and everybody liked it. And so we said, great, let's keep it. And how can we build on it? And so one of the first things we did, and this is just an example, right? We went to Wyoming and we had a 2-day in-person meeting with a huge coalition of people, the state wildlife officials, non-governmental organizations, but primarily private landowners. And we sat with private landowners for 2 days. It was DOI, USDA officials, and DOT officials. And we heard from them loud and clear. They wanted to participate in this wildlife migration conservation movement. And the best way that we could provide the resources was through a habitat leasing program that we did end up standing up. And the program was administered by USDA, and farmers and ranchers could opt in through USDA. They provided financial assistance. And then we came in through the Fish and Wildlife Service with the Wildlife Partners Program and provided technical assistance to private farmers and ranchers who were participating in that program, and worked with them on, how best to make their lands wildlife friendly. And wildlife they don't understand private property boundaries. And so it's critical for us to build these coalitions and be good partners and build trusted relationships with private landowners so that we can work together to achieve these shared conservation goals.
You just named a number of agencies, though, a number of government agencies that all got to be doing the kumbaya together. I mean, how are you able to pull that off?
It's not always easy. No, we really try to approach a lot of this work as a federal family. And just going off of that example, right? CEQ created an interagency wildlife corridors working group, and we met weekly, and we stood up a charter, and it was a great venue for us to talk about the different work that we were doing. But more importantly, it was a place for us to build relationships amongst the federal family. And so, if this is just another example, state folks from California called and they said, hey, we want to do something on wildlife corridors. Well, okay, but we only have so much. The Interior Department only has so much jurisdiction. There's only so many national parks. There's only so many national wildlife refuges. There's only so much BLM land, and inevitably that land will abut a highway, right? So we can't do it without DOT participating as well. It will, of course, run into ranch land. We can't do it without USDA. And so to be able to pick up the phone and call our counterparts at DOT and USDA and say, hey, you guys have XYZ resources and XYZ expertise and XYZ relationships, and we have the counterpart to that. Let's partner up. Let's make sure that we're leveraging all of this expertise and resources. It's so important. It really speaks to, how when we partner, we can achieve so much more.
Well, we talk about landowners, and we're talking about land a lot. What about the organizations? I've been a member of Pheasants Forever. I've been a member of Ducks Unlimited. The National Wildlife Federation. I mean, all of these different groups that at times I've agreed with their policy, at times I haven't, which means they're doing a good job, right? They're supposed to be pushing that envelope. But how big of players are they on some of the things that you attempted and did accomplish?
Huge. We can't do it without them, right? They bring, I mean, depending on the organization, of course, but if you're talking about Pheasants Forever, you're talking about Ducks Unlimited, right? Huge constituencies, huge, and it's so valuable when it's a nonpartisan constituency, right? And sometimes it's not, and they bring their own members, and they bring expertise, and you know, they all have sort of their own pulse on the ground, and they have their own membership and are able to sort of give one voice to that membership in a way that makes that voice louder. And they have, they have relationships with individuals on the ground in a way that, like, we just, from where we sit, simply can't. And so their ability to, like, build coalitions and bring people together in a targeted and meaningful way is critical.
I can see where you're spot on right about that. Plus the knowledge that they bring. I mean, when you're out there living in the outdoors, some of the individuals that you have to talk to, their perspective of the outdoors or their interests can be geographically so much different, I would guess.
100%. And, like, constituencies that you might not think of, right? Like, I'm thinking about the groups that represent, accessibility in the outdoors, right? That sort of thing that, like, it doesn't necessarily come to the forefront, but when they bring people together and they bring, not like just like ADA accessible hiking trails, things that I would not have the knowledge or the expertise, but when the groups who do bring that to you, it's so important.
The world can change in an election, though. I mean, it really can. You look at the work that you did under the Biden administration, and how frustrating is it when you see a completely different attitude, and that some of the people that you worked with that maybe did vote for this administration when it comes to specific issues on the outdoors might not agree with it, or certainly don't agree with it, which I believe there are individuals like that because I live in a pretty red state. But for you, who worked so hard on that policy and went out and actually did your homework and didn't do it just to benefit yourself or some very rich buddies, how frustrating is that?
I mean, of course, it's hard, right? It is. But you always know that it can happen, and you have to prepare along the way for that, and you have to try to build in safeguards where you can, and a lot of that is building the relationships, because we do have shared priorities, right? Like, across the political spectrum. And there are people who have influence, and organizations who have influence in this administration that want to see a lot of the conservation priorities that we carried out continued. And so I think, it's hard for everybody who cares about our public lands to see some of the, things that are being pushed forward, or trying to be pushed forward, in this Congress and in this administration. But just knowing that you did what you could while you had the ability to do it, and that you laid the foundation to make sure that the people who do continue to have influence are continuing to fight the good fight.
Mackenzie, thanks for what you did. Thanks a lot for what you did. Someday you're going to be called on to do more. I don't even know what you're doing in your private life. I just know someday we're going to suck you back into government. How do you like that?
We'll see about that. No, I'm just kidding. I would love
that. It's actually nice to have a buck in your pocket, though, now, too. So thank you, Mackenzie. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
You bet. A lot of work, ladies and gentlemen, and work that you don't make a lot of money at, but you do because of the love of it. Now I get a chance to have a conversation with Barrett Kaiser and Tracy Stone-Manning. We're going to get a chance to visit with a longtime conservationist and public lands advocate. That's what Tracy is, who has played a significant role in shaping U.S. land management policies as president of the Wilderness Society. She leads efforts to unite people. That's right, unite people to protect America's wild places. Barrett Kaiser, a partner at Hilltop Strategy. Barrett has served as a lead consultant on the effort to fully and permanently fund the Federal Land and Water Conservation Fund. He's also an active member of American Hunters and Anglers, a nonpartisan, do I need to say that word again? Nonpartisan national network of public land advocates. Tracy, welcome to the Rural Progress Summit.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's a treat to be here.
I don't know that we talked before, but I got to tell you, redhead, you could be an honorary Heitkamp. We can make you that, whether you like it or not.
I mean, I would love that so much.
There aren't many of us left. I have to tell you that. And Barrett, good to have you along with as well.
You bet, Joel. Great to see you again. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to be on with you, man. I've been following you more after our last visit, and I have to tell you, the work that you do, it hits right in stride. And I visit with some of my buddies as well about what you guys do. And each and every day, it's just so important. I just want to talk. And maybe I had the danger of this last time, but did you two get a chance to hear it all, what Senator Heinrich said in the summit? Okay, let me tell you what he said. He said we're in danger of losing our public lands, but we won this round. We did. And that's overall what I took from it. And Tracy, do you find that, as somebody who's as passionate about it as you are, do you find that as something that every day you wake up and you're nervous about? Because we were close this time.
Yeah, we were closer than we should have been. But here's what makes me wake up confident. We have the support of the American people, people from all corners of this country, all stripes, all political stripes, all genders, all ages said, whoa, hold on, no. I love my public lands in ways that I don't think that either Senator Lee or the administration expected. And here's the thing, they're not going to stop saying that. They're going to continue to fight for it if they have to. And that's what gives me confidence, right? That we're in such a divided country right now. And the unity around public lands for me is a path back to reminding ourselves how to work together, how to govern for this country, and how to pass on this incredible heritage that we have in something called public lands.
And I'm not just talking about you, Tracy, but Barrett and I as well. We hang out in the same places. I mean, we really do. And there are people as Tracy pointed out, we're so divided as a country, but there are people that I hang out with, just like you do, Barrett. And you start talking about these things, all of a sudden, everybody in the room's happy. I mean, they really are. There aren't a lot of people that are advocating for the overtaking of public lands. And I don't know if you're seeing that as much as I am.
100%, Joel. And Tracy knows this better than anybody. But, for a long time, the public lands community was segmented out into user groups, right? So you had ATVs that wanted to be able to ride their motorcycles, et cetera, in this area. And you had bird watchers who didn't want the noise, and mountain bikers and wilderness advocates. The one thing that this has done for us is pulled everybody together, because we are now have a shared fight, and that is to halt the wholesale sale of transfer of public lands. And as Tracy alluded to, this was a remarkable rebuke. I mean, Mike Lee kicked the hornet's nest in a way, and the community stepped up. And it was all walks of life, all ages, and that's the beauty of public lands. These are the great equalizers. Doesn't matter where you're from, how much money you have, who you voted for or didn't vote for. These lands belong to all of us. And so that's a shared fight, and it gives me great hope and optimism that we can keep this drumbeat up. And I will add to that, I think that those who support these kind of policies are going to pay a significant price at the ballot box. Oftentimes you think about public lands as just a Western issue, but we have federal public lands all over this country. I mean, we've got places in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and North Carolina and Florida, and the list goes on. And so I'm optimistic about our ability to fight this back. Why we even have to is an outstanding question. But anyway, I'll stop there, Joel. Those are a couple of thoughts from me.
And Joel, you had mentioned you can't even figure out who's for it. We were working with one Republican Senate office where they said, we literally have not gotten one phone call in support of public land sell-off. But boy, howdy, have we gotten thousands opposing it, right? And, for all the listeners out there, that also warms my heart, having worked for a senator, having worked for a governor. It still matters that people call. It still matters that people weigh in with their elected officials because they're paying attention. And in this case, they could say, like, not one person has said they want this. Yeah.
But Tracy, you said it in the beginning, way closer than we should have been.
Yeah.
And maybe Barrett's right. Maybe we educated them to the point where it's like not worth the fight anymore. As a former state senator, I didn't like phone calls constantly that told me something I already knew, but it's part of the process. And so here's what makes me nervous, Tracy. There's a guy named Doug Burgum that we all know, right? He's a Secretary of the Interior now. In his days, before he was ever Governor Doug Burgum, he was a huge advocate for public lands. Huge. Then he became governor, and it was all good. It really was. He advocated for and pushed for people to get out there, get after it, utilize the outdoors. Somewhere along the line, he changed. I mean, he changed. And you mentioned how the country's divided. I think personally, it has a lot to do with the relationships you have with the people that want to industrialize those public lands. All of a sudden, Doug Burgum's hanging out every day with Harold Hamm, and Harold Hamm wants to put up a bunch of oil rigs. And so, how do we put the right people in these appointments and in other places to make sure we don't kind of worry about somebody flipping and flopping like that?
Ooh, there's a good question. I think the thing to remember, and I think that the thing that the secretary understands viscerally, is that he serves at the pleasure of the president. And so he is going to carry forward the president's wishes. And what we're seeing is a complete manifestation of the President Trump's agenda, the Project 2025 agenda, which says we are going to lease every acre. We're gonna get as much oil and gas on the landscape as possible. We're going to bring back coal. I mean, it was written right there for everybody to see, and now he's implementing it. Right? He's doing his job.
Doug Burgum was the one who said that our public lands are just numbers on a balance sheet, and we have a different message for Doug Burgum. These are real places where real families make real memories, where people feed their families for the winter, where we graze our cattle. It goes on and on and on, and it's absurd. But the thing I will point out, Joel, is that this movement to sell off public lands is not new. It has been festering in America for years, and now they saw this opportunity with this new administration to strike. But we were able to blunt that. But it's clear that their new playbook now is to defund, divest, and dismantle our public lands. It's very clear with what DOJ did in firing those great public land managers, public servants like Mackenzie, who was just on this Zoom, and others who are out in the field. And that is the ultimate goal. And it's our job as engaged citizens to fight back and make our voices heard, just like Tracy said.
I'm going to go back to being the Joel I don't want to be, but it's my job today when I ask you questions, which is, and I'm going to throw this first one at you, Barrett. There's room for all, right? That we own too many public lands as a nation, and too many of those public lands were put in as a protection that no longer need protecting. What's your answer to that?
I think it's a ruse. Essentially, whether they're talking about affordable housing or whether they want to highlight the quality of one particular parcel over another, it is essentially a camel's nose under the tent to fulfill this long-held objective to dismantle our federal public land system.
Tracy, next one goes to you. We need housing. We need more housing for people. I'm in Utah. I'm on the edge of a town, and the town's full. And so why are we against housing? If we move more people in there, more people are actually going to enjoy the outdoors. Your answer to that?
We do need more housing in this country. Public lands are not the answer. The reason that the West is booming is because people want to be near these places, right? They want to be near the elk and the trout and the trails. In some cases, public lands could be the answer, right? But there are already mechanisms in place to do that. So I had the incredible honor of directing the Bureau of Land Management under the previous administration. And we used tools at our disposal, already on the books, in Las Vegas, for example, to get affordable housing up and going. There are tools for places like Utah, where say there's a 5-acre parcel in the middle of a small town that the BLM doesn't use anymore for its admin building. There's a mechanism in place to sell that. Well, sure, it makes sense to have housing in town, right? So the federal government can divest of those 5 acres. There are processes already in place to get the work done that we need to get done for the American people.
Okay, I'm done playing devil's advocate. I didn't like it. I'm just telling you, both of you, that. I'm going to go back to Barrett on this one. Barrett, how do we get into that classroom? I mean, every one of my grandkids knows about public lands. They know about the outdoors. I make them go to my fish house with me. Whether we're catching fish or not, they're happy. My point is this: just get people outside. How do we do that even more?
I mean, that's a pretty vague question, but in general terms, Joel, I mean, I think that really is in many ways part of the answer here. And it's to diversify the users of our public lands. And the Obama administration did a great job of really being more welcoming to all sorts of different user groups, ethnicities, etc., to make sure that people know that they're available. How they access them, where they can go, all of that information is critically important. But as you know, I mean, a lot of this is passed down from generation to generation, and I think that is a very powerful argument for that guy in Wisconsin who wants to go and sit in his ice house with his grandkids, but may not be able to because of the policies that are coming out of Washington D.C. Let's go talk to him. Let's get him engaged and active in politics, and he might rethink how he votes come election day.
And this one goes to Tracy because it is a different generation. It's a cell phone generation. And I don't ever want to be that guy that criticizes, because I think that my kids and my grandkids worked just as hard as I did, and I worked hard. So I don't want to be that guy, but I do want to be the guy that makes sure that they appreciate the fact that somebody before us advocated for and was the Teddy Roosevelt. And so what I'm looking for is leadership. And how do we get that, Tracy?
Also, a really good and hard question. I think we use the technology we have today. Like, let's go back to the cell phone, right? My step-granddaughter, during the public lands fight, said to me, "Oh my God, it's the only thing on my Instagram feed." Right? And it was young people saying, "Hold on," looking at a map, for example, that the Wilderness Society put up online to say, "Hey, these are the lands that are on the chopping block." And then all of a sudden people understood, wait a minute, that's where I ride my bike. That's where I take my kids camping. Like, wait, hold on. I don't mean those places, right? Yeah. And that changed the conversation. And I mean, I think now more than ever, leadership is about showing up and being honest and being transparent, and also standing up for what you believe in, right? We've seen a lot of flip-flopping out there, and people are going to be drawn to those that do not flip-flop.
Barrett, admit it. What she just said made you proud because you had your fingerprints on that just like she did. And the more that social media was used, the stronger I bet it got for you.
100%. And if you think about it, Joel, I mean, the ability to take this computer that we carry in our pockets with us out to these beautiful landscapes, capture the imagery and using them and having fun and making memories. I mean, the land sells itself, right? And so, using those new technologies is absolutely critical. And we, by and large, as a community, are somewhat playing catch up right now. But that was on full display during the Mike Lee fight. It was absolutely incredible just how every group, every organization, everybody was pulling the wagon in the same direction and just juicing social media. And these members were feeling pain in their comments, on their feeds. They can't ignore that because there's a certain amount of public shaming that goes on when, a phone call might just end up on an intern's desk. These comments are out there for the entire world to see. So it's a powerful tool that we absolutely have to continue to utilize.
What shocked me, guys, was that Lee said after he lost that he wasn't going to quit. Yeah. And you would think that after the punch he took in the nose on this issue, after the way you guys organized, others organized, and just the general public was mad, that he would have learned a lesson And so I'm going back to you, Tracy, where you said, and it's going to stick with me, closer than it should have been.
Yeah.
Because I don't think people like him are going to quit. I think that they're so embarrassed of how they lost that they've got to prove they can win.
Yeah, and I think it's also a deeply held values proposition for for a very small minority, including some people who are in power, like Senator Lee. It is a deeply held values proposition for him that the American people should not own land in common. We should not have public lands, right? Good news for us, the American people do not agree with him. But my concern, and I think what we need to all be watching for now, is they're going to try and find another way to get this to happen. As Barrett was talking about earlier, the firings that are happening in these land management agencies are happening so that they can dismantle the agencies. And then the American public will be like, what's up with the Bureau of Land Management that can't manage its own land? And then electeds will say, right, so we need to sell it or we need to give it to the state, right? It is a calculated effort. And, and, to people who have given their whole careers to managing these lands for us, right? They're not getting rich, but they have these very meaningful careers in serving all of us as Americans, managing these lands that we hold in common for us, and they're being kicked to the curb, and it's not okay.
And I'm glad you mentioned 2025 because it is calculated. I mean, there is something going on here that just leaves you shaking your head. I want to throw this one out there. It came in our chat room, and everybody feel free to do that. Just exactly that. You can see it on the bottom of our podcast here. It says podcast. Talk about a radio guy. It says, "What reforms can Congress pursue to restore and re-strengthen public land protections, especially to stop future sell-off attempts disguised as permitting reform or more land for housing? What are the first steps House members can take right now?" I'm gonna go to you first on that, Tracy.
They can they can pass a budget that Americans deserve for their public lands. The president's budget has $27 million, for example, for recreation across all Bureau of Land Management agencies, BLM lands rather. $27 million for 245 million acres, for 81 million visitors who come every year. That's dismantling, right? So there is policy that can happen. We often say budgets are policy statements. If people believe in public lands, they should make sure that the agencies that take care of them for us are funded. And we're right now in a budget cycle, and I think that's the thing that the House can do the most, is reject the president's budget and say, no, we're going to take care of these national treasures. It's our heritage. It's our obligation to the future.
Barrett, I'm going to go to you as well. I think you should get a chance to answer that.
No, Joel, I cannot make that any better. Tracy just absolutely nailed it like she always does. That's exactly right.
Okay, let me ask you this, Barrett. How many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have 3 older sisters.
And they're all older, right?
Yep.
Okay, because I have 5 older sisters and an older brother, and it's usually the youngest one that causes all the trouble. And you did. I mean, you did. You got after it. I mean, you put it out there. You had a conversation with people. You took extra time, and it's us younger ones, that do that type of thing. Sometimes good and bad. But is that passion going to stay there with everyone? Do you think, or as Tracy put it, all these different ways of coming around the backside? I'm asking this question in a poor way, so let me ask it this way. Not a big lover of the Trump administration, never hid that on my radio show. He doesn't follow the law. We won. Lee tried to put this in the law. What if he doesn't care? What if he doesn't care and he says, I got the Supreme Court, I'm just going to do it anyway. Harold Hamm, go start drilling oil wells. What happens, Barrett?
I mean, there are certainly mechanisms in place. I know it feels like the whole effing world's falling apart in D.C., but the good news is our founders were very smart in developing the documents that guide this country. And obviously, Trump is blurring those lines. But going back to how you started the question, Joel, with regard to this embarrassing loss that Mike Lee took, and if you think about it, if anybody who's on here is watching really follows Congress, I don't think I have ever seen a member have to withdraw his own proposal amidst this kind of public backlash? That is like so embarrassing, right? And so the problem is it's like how, water always finds the cracks. Well, they're going to keep finding cracks and ways to include these public land sales and cutting budgets and all of these things. And it's a really important question to be asking at a really important time, because this community that we just saw fire up like crazy needs to stay engaged, because we can't go anywhere. We have to stay diligent. We have to stay on our toes and keep throwing punches.
And I'm going to throw that one to you as well, though, because my biggest fear about this administration is that they ignore law. And you at the Wilderness Society are going to be put in a place where you have to deal yourself a hand on something you shouldn't have to deal yourself a hand on, which is, instead of advocating for, lobbying for, and helping get laws passed, you're now having to make an argument in the courts that somebody's not following it. And so I'm really curious, Tracy, what you think about that.
We're gearing up, right? And also, I should point out, youngest of 5 right here.
You know what? I'm not going to lie to you. It doesn't shock me. It really doesn't.
So yeah, we're gearing up. One of our rights as citizens in this country is to take our redresses against the federal government to court. And when the federal government is going to violate the law, we're going to ask the court to say that you just ran a red light. You can't do that. And we're going to continue to engage the American public, so that the American public will go to the other branch of government to say, "Hey, hold on, like this is not what we voted for, and what we voted for was our heritage and the future." And so we just have to ping on all the cylinders in order to make it work.
Barrett, what about the reactionary approach we all take to this instead of the proactive approach we take? Because it seems to me that, as Tracy said, way closer, obviously that's stuck in my head, but way closer than it should have been. What can we do proactively rather than react to something like what Senator Lee put in front of us?
Well, it's human nature to want to deal with the fist that's in your face immediately, right? I mean, that reactionary, that rapid response, we have to do that because of how fast things move in our country these days. But we also have to do the long work of strategic planning and setting goals to get to landscape protection initiatives, wherever they may be. And Tracy knows this. It takes forever to do big things in this system, but it's the engaged individuals, the small groups, the pint nights, the sign making parties. Those things over time add up, and finally you get a moment in time, and you can do big things through the legislative process. We just have to do both. We have to walk and chew gum at the same time, Joel.
Tracy, I don't want to let that question pass without giving you a shot at it as well. Proactive. Talk to me about that.
So the Wilderness Society, for example, works in communities all over the country. And while things are crazy back here in DC and people are hollering at each other back in DC, in communities all over the place, people are actually coming to the table and finding agreement with each other, right? And there's going to be a moment where what they are doing at the table, agreeing about what the landscape should look like, what should be protected, which lands need to be managed for recreation or timber or wilderness or fill in the blank. People finding common ground about their common ground, and they're taking these proposals back to this dysfunction. And at some point, people here are going to be like, you know what? My job was to actually get things done instead of just to stop things all the time.
Yeah.
And so let's get this. Like, look what my constituents just did for me. Right.
Yeah.
And that kind of quiet work on offense is also great defense, because as people are working with each other across the table, when they hear name calling, they can say, "Wait a minute, I know that group. They're not like that." And they can also, when they see other places being attacked, they can say, "Hey, hold on a second. That place is being attacked. That's not okay. That's like my place being attacked," right? Mm-hmm. So that work of collaboration on the ground in communities, trying to put forward proposals about how we manage these lands in common, is just so important. And it's frankly a lesson to leaders, right?
I would add one more thing. My time in the state Senate, I went from, just to tell you how young I was when I got in, I think it was 32 or something like that, young enough, but to not know better. But when I got in there, it started with the phone message, right? They were yellow. So I'd get to my desk and there were these phone messages on that nail. We've all seen it on your desk, and you'd pick them up. And those phone messages never were there to tell you thank you. They were always there to say, Joel, get off your ass and get moving, and then, that type of thing. Then from then it went to email. Okay, so now I'm getting, on the bad bills, on the ones where either I'm goofing up or somebody else is goofing up and they want me to take them on. I'd get hundreds of emails on a small scale in a state like North Dakota. Then it went on to social media. where your life could turn to crap in one day through social media if you were on the wrong side. My point is this, in saying this, Barrett, it matters. It matters when elected officials get messages, no matter where they come, it matters. And I think both your organizations proved that this time, Barrett.
While the modes may change, that constituent outreach to his or her elected official is just as strong today as it has ever been, right? So maybe it just used to be in Montana, it was pink cards, right? And there was phone calls and emails, and now it's social media, etc. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? And at the end of the day, elected officials work for us. And we're their bosses. And so if we are not telling them what we like and what we don't like, then they'll just take the easiest path, right? So we have to create a squeaky wheel, and in some instances create actual pain and political problems for these guys to do the right thing.
What do you think the biggest misunderstanding is? If there's one thing that you can use this summit for, to make sure people understand and understand as they walk out as an action item, what do you think the biggest misperception is?
I'm going to answer the last question first as well, which is a beautiful reminder. Thank yous really matter, right? Mm-hmm. So after all of this hubbub, folks who ask their electeds to do something, if they did it, they should be thanked, right? Because electeds remember being thanked because it happens so rarely, right? So for folks out there, whether you expected your member to do the right thing or not, like even if you expected them to, still say thank you. And if you didn't expect them to, definitely say thank you. I think the thing that folks at this summit could take away is that your voices matter, right? We still live, thank God, in a democracy where voices matter, and also sort of take to heart the lesson that we all just learned. We have so much more common ground with each other than we thought. Right? Public lands are a great and beautiful unifier in this country, and they are a path back to the country that we all hope that we will live in again one day, where we get along a little bit better and work together for the future instead of at each other's throats for a YouTube moment. Mm-hmm. And the only way that's going to happen is if the people demand it. And so that's what people can take from this summit: the power of making change as an individual voice, one of many voices that are going to force the right thing.
Barrett, you're in a classroom. You're in a classroom with seventh graders, and you just went through what you two went through, where you've got to take on a powerful senator in the majority. What are you going to tell those seventh graders?
Well, I would tell them that it used to be that only the kings and the queens got the public lands and the wildlife. But in America, it's different because we have what we call the North American model for wildlife and wild places. And so we own these lands, and there's a movement to sell them off. So we are going to become civically engaged young men and women, and we're going to contact our elected officials, and we're going to join organizations that fight. We'll volunteer our time. But I think making sure that the younger generation understands that America is different because of our public land system. In England and other places, you can't go shoot a red stag unless you have millions of dollars to pay some royalty to do so. So that's a point I think I would make, and I think that's something that it's important for all people to remember.
I will tell you this. I don't know that you could say it any better. Period. Plain and simple. And the sending a thank you matters too. I mean, you are spot on about that, Tracy. I want to thank you for being part of the Rural Progress Summit. I want to thank you for what you're doing for my grandkids and their grandkids someday. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. You know, you make a difference. And so I'm not just saying that because Tracy, you told me to say thank you. I'm saying it because I mean it. Okay. Thanks for joining us today, you guys.
Thanks so
Thank
much,
you,
Joel.
Joel. And
You bet.
tell Heidi how much we appreciate her pulling this together. Thank
She
you all.
cheats at pinochle. I've been trying to tell everybody that, so it's okay. Thank
Barrett.
you, guys. You bet. And I want to thank everybody for joining us in this summit. This is what Rural Progress is all about. So thanks for joining us today.